Alright, how's it going everybody? So this is it. This is the video where we will be going through UV mapping, unwrapping, texturizing, and materializing our lantern. And by the end, we'll have a nice little finished product. Hopefully. So, before we begin though, in order to more accurately follow along with today's video, you're going to want to head over here to Polygon.com and grab this here free texture, Metal Corroded Heavy 001. You can also grab Metal Spotty Discoloration 001 just as an option. And you'll also want to head over here and grab the Polygon Material Converter add-on for Blender. This is a free add-on. You can download that here. I'll include links for both of these in the description. When you download the add-on, do not unzip it. Just keep it zipped up. You'll just want to head right back over here to Blender, go down to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and you can type Mater in the search bar here. It'll pull it up right there. Just click this little checkbox, then you can even click this and save preferences. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so before we begin marking seams to do an unwrap, we're just going to fix up a few more things with our topology. So, to start, if you have these front faces here hidden still from like the previous video, just go ahead and hit Alt-H to unhide them, and then just select them all out using hit C to activate our paint selection tool. And we're just going to go through and select all of these faces, because we're going to separate all of these, what'll end up being our little panels of glass. We're going to separate that into its own object, because right now it's causing some problems, and we just don't want that. I'll explain as we get further in, but for now, let's just get this out of the way. Okay, so with all of those faces selected, you can even do like a little once over, maybe not in wireframe, and just kind of check the sides here, make sure you didn't grab any of these the side faces on here. We just want these big, the parts that are going to end up being glass. With all those selected though, we can hit P and then separate by selection. We can just tab into object mode, we can grab that and hit H to hide that mesh, and then tab back into edit mode with our lantern here. And so first things first, we've got this going on here where this edge isn't continuous and it stops right there, right? And that's unfortunate, but we're going to fix that, as well as a few other things. So what we need to do, whoops, if I could stop getting inside the mesh here, is if you come over to, here I'll even zoom out because I think they're going to be pretty big. If we come up here to this little drop down right here and you click this while in edit mode, and you go down to this right here, normals, and I'm going to select this one to display the normals for our faces, and it's going to shoot these big ol', kind of cool looking lines out, and we can adjust the size. I'm going to drop mine to something pretty small, like a 0.001. Let's see how big that is. I might even want to go just a little bit bigger than that. Yeah, just kind of find a good size that isn't too disorienting for you. I'll probably put mine up to like 0.003 maybe, something like that. Because you'll notice, like for some faces, like I'll show you down here, we've got these ones here that, the normals kind of will, when they're longer, if the length of the normal is pretty long, you'll have this kind of thing right here where it's coming through the other face, and if you were in here looking at it, you'd be like, oh, these normals are facing the wrong way, right? It's not continuous with all of the others, but it's actually just the normal of this face, which is facing the proper way. It's just kind of, displaying through the other face there. So pretty much everything on the outside is going to be fine. Everything on the outside, we're a-okay. It's all this stuff on the inside that we did that's going to be a little wonky, and it's an easy fix for the most part. So as you can see, if we zoom in here, when you have like a long plane like this, it'd be somewhere right here in the middle of this, these faces would be the normal, and it's not there. But if we mouse under, we can see it's displaying underneath. If we go inside our little cylindrical piece here, whoops, we can see that all of the normals are facing inside. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we can hold Alt, we'll left click right there to select this whole ring of faces. Excuse me, gosh, this is really frustrating getting inside the mesh. It's just something I feel like I'm just getting like pushed around in here. I'm getting bullied. Something that's just part of the struggle. You could go into object mode and like scale this up. I would recommend also unhiding the faces that we hid, and then selecting both and then scaling them together. You could scale it up so you've got like a little bit more to work with there. I'm just gonna deal with it. I made my bed, I'm gonna sleep in it. I'm gonna go ahead and hide these though. Okay, so as I was saying, well, now we'll hold Shift and Alt and just left click all of these face loops here. Let me get in real close, make sure, because sometimes you'll have, like you see over here, we've got these faces, these inside faces that are displaying properly. They're fine, but it's not that way all the way around. So there's that to be aware of. Sometimes there will be like one little face in this whole thing that's like facing the right way, and if you're not aware of that, then all you're gonna do is end up just like swapping it around, and it'll still be facing the wrong way from everything else. I'll show you what we can do about that though. Like what we can do with that in consideration, you know? So just going all the way up though and selecting all of this just like that. And then right away what we're going to do for this one is we could just hit Alt, like hold Alt and hit N, and that's going to bring up our normals menu, and we could hit flip, because I'm pretty confident that all of these, like every single face all the way around this thing, was facing inside. But if we wanted to be certain, and I'm not sure if this is going to work right now just yet, because there might be some other editing that we have to do before it registers the location of these faces. But what we could do is we can hit Alt N and instead recalculate outside. There we go. And it did work out just fine. And so what that does is, so I'll show you with these faces over here. I'm going to hold Alt and left click here. So like this loop of faces, as I showed before, some of it is facing in as it should, and some of it's facing out as it should not. So if I hit Alt N and I just flipped it, it would flip the ones that were facing out to facing in, and the ones that were facing in to facing out. So that's no good. You pretty much only want to use flip if you know for a fact that the faces you have selected are all facing one direction, and you want them to all face the opposite direction. But if they're, kind of mismatched, you just kind of figure out, sometimes, it just depends on which one, but you can, just play around with these, see if recalculate outside works, right? Because it might be confusing, like, because this is inside the lantern, but, that's not how it's registering, like, reading the geometry. So, like, if I went in here and I, like, grabbed this face in here, which actually there is a face there, that's something we're going to get to in a moment. So, basically, yeah, this face in here that we had filled in the previous video, that's an inside face. That's inside the mesh there. So anything that's in between basically four walls is going to be counted as is inside. So if we were to say recalculate inside, it would just point inside of this wall that's here as it registers it. So anyway, now that that's all done, that's a majority of the normals already fixed right there. So now, next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to come up top here, and with face select still, we'll hold Alt and left click here, holding Shift and Alt and clicking there, and Shift Alt and clicking here. Now this is going to suck because we did all the work to put this in, but it is what it is. It just really doesn't like it. I've tried getting it to, be happy with it, and it just isn't. So, what are you going to do? So we'll also come through and, paint select through here. If you remember, we didn't fill in these, we didn't fill in these faces, but I believe we did fill in, yeah, we filled in these. So pretty much just like two faces in from where it flattens out all the way up to the top there. Well, if you had filled these in. If you didn't, then good, less work that you got to worry about. But I'm just going to go through real quick and grab all of these faces, and I'm going to delete them, because it also doesn't appreciate this. I was able to get Blender to appreciate a lot of this stuff, but then I just found an easier way, and that was just getting rid of it and then doing one big thing, like one big change, and it just fixed everything. So after I delete these, I'll kind of show you what it is that we're trying to fix here. Whoops. Okay, selecting all those, and I'm going to hit X and delete those faces. I'm also going to go and delete these small faces in here, but I'll get back to that in a moment. So what I'm going to do is, real quick, I will grab this and duplicate that over there just for a moment, just in case I screw anything up. So as I'm pretty sure I showed in the previous video, we could not go to rendered, go wireframe. We could just come over here and like add the Decimate Modifier, switch it to planar. If we wanted to just reduce our poly count, right? So like this thing's now like got 17,000 tries, 8,000 some odd faces or whatever. Oh, sorry, that's before I applied the modifier. Duh. Let me go back into object. There we go. I was gonna say that's a lot. So here we go. 4,000 now, and 900 out of, well, sorry, 1,500 faces. So, you know, and it works well enough, you know? It's a pretty simple mesh. You could literally just do this, and that would be kind of like your retopology for this project. And that's also, that count is not, you know, representative of the final thing, because I still got a lot of work to do in there, just kind of showing, though, like, that is what you could do, right? But if you wanted to actually, you know, for, like, other meshes, like more actual complex meshes, you would actually come down to, I mean, there's a lot of options for doing retopology. You could do it manually. There's a lot of like automated processes. Blender's got this built-in option here. So if you come down to this, the object data properties tab, this little green triangle thing, and you scroll down and find this remesh little property thing here, you've got voxel and quad. And so I'm not going to break down the you know, I'm not going to explain the difference between those two. I'm not a scientist, right? I don't know everything, but yeah, basically in object mode, you could, you know, select quad remesh, choose the number of faces that you want it to kind of break the model down to. So if we were looking at it before, we had 17,000 faces, right? Or sorry, 17,000 triangles, nearly 9,000 faces. So if we just hit this and we wanted to go with 4,000, that's already going to reduce the topology by half. And that's nice because, well, nearly half. And that's nice because it's just less topology if it allows you to maintain the shape and all of the detail is still there. In some cases with more complex meshes, you would duplicate this object as I did over here. You would duplicate it before applying like this kind of method of retopologizing it, and then you would just bake the detail of the one that has all of the extra stuff, because there will be smaller like surface level details that will be lost after retopologizing, and then you could just bake that detail though onto this one, and it simulates the detail and all that, you know, all that, like, you know, you could have like some molding and like carvatures or whatever, and just like really nice stuff that you can just bake onto it, but not have to sacrifice you know, all that processing power just to be able to display it and render it, especially in real time in like a game engine. So anyway, though, if I try this, if I try to hit this quad remesher here, let's say 4,000 faces, and I hit OK, down here, it says the mesh needs to be manifold and have face normals that point in a consistent direction. So that's why, first and foremost, I was, you know, focusing on getting those normals facing, you know, all a consistent direction, because that just happens sometimes when you start, you know, pretty much when we were modeling in the beginning, everything was on the outside. All of our extrusions, we were going out this way, right, out and around, and so it was maintaining, because the initial object we started with being the cylinder. If we go into edit mode, and then you gotta, again, for this one, we'll have to turn on normals. Oh wait, no, that's right, it's because the size is so darn small. And so yeah, you can see the normals are already all facing out in this direction. So as we grab a face and we kind of like extrude it out, it just kind of maintains that automatically for us, kind of keeps that nice consistency no matter what as we continue out. But sometimes, you know, as you start getting like pretty wonky and you take this in, you know, it'll try its best to do this thing where now it's got like these normals kind of facing inward, because it's like, okay, I see what you're doing. But there's just some times where when you start modeling it in weird ways, you know, going into the mesh like that, it just doesn't, you know, it doesn't remain consistent, you know, because it's us, we're the problem, right? We're getting pretty crazy. So that's step one, was just kind of trying to fix up 0.003, there we go. Fix up these normals, right? And then after that, what we can also do is in edit mode, if we hit, because you know, the other part was the, you know, it needs to be manifold. Now, again, I'm not a scientist, but I've heard it described as basically, in a sense, think of whether or not, you know, you're like, there's a part of your mesh that would compromise it being like watertight or something like that, or, you know, I don't know. Basically, it's just, I just attribute it to like bad geometry, you know, it's just, or bad topology, you know, little things that as you go, you'll start to notice, you know, and there's a number of things that cause it. You know, I'll break that down maybe in like a video where I'll tackle specifically that subject, but here we're working on this lantern, right? So what I'm going to do though is in either vertice select or edge select, we can come up here to select, click that, and we'll come down here to select all by trait, and there's an option right here for non-manifold, and that's immediately going to highlight all of the problem areas that we need to fix. And you know, once you start to kind of get a little bit more familiar with things, consistently check your models using this option, and you'll start to kind of notice like what exactly the problem is. Now with this particular area, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not entirely sure what its problem is outside of the the normals, other than the fact that maybe, well, now it's like there's this big old gap here or something, but the solution to the problem versus like how it was, because you know, we deleted the face that I had here that I had extruded out like that, right? We had this rim up here, and it was still saying that this edge up to here was like a problem, and I was like, okay, maybe it's because it's a single vertice that has that's, you know, connected to 5 different edges with like a face right here. But then when I looked over here, I was like, well, that's what this is, and it wasn't saying this is a problem. So I couldn't figure out exactly what its problem was, but I figured out how to fix it. So that's all that matters, right? So what I'm going to do first before I move on with fixing that up there is I'm going to fix this down here. Hold on, actually, before I do that, let me make sure I actually removed that extrusion. Okay, I did. So I'm going to add in some loop cuts here, right, so that we can connect this edge all the way through down here, so we don't have any n-gons anywhere. So I'm just going to hit oops. Okay. Oops, I forgot something, I guess. Ah, stop spinning me around, darn it. Right. Okay, that's what I forgot. Duh. So as I had showed before, we have those inside faces. That's what's that's part of the problem of why it's not selecting that bit there. So what we're going to do is we can go into wireframe. We'll come up here to select. This is another sweet thing. We can go select all by trait and instead do interior faces, and voila. It's going to highlight all of those faces in there that, you know, that I had showed before that are actually inside this wall here, because we had filled those in to kind of help, you know, give us a baseline so that we could fill in this bottom here and just kind of maintain some nice quad topology here. But now with all of that selected, we can go ahead and just delete that because it's just a problem now. So now we can add our loop cut. Control R, add a loop cut right here. Now I'm going to go all the way around and just add loop cuts to each one of these areas, just mousing over it, left click, then right click to center it right up. Doing that for all 8 of these little pillar areas. Okay, looks like I got them all. Okay. Now, before I delete these faces down here, I'm going to hold Alt and Shift, and I'm just going to left click and select all of these faces here, because again, these ones, I think some of them, their normals are facing in, but they're not all facing in as they should, or I guess out as they should. They're facing in. I don't know. See, it's confusing. Like, see, these ones are facing out or in, however you want it. It's into the lantern, but it's, you know what I'm saying? Okay, but see, yeah, these ones up here are not. So I'm just gonna mouse around, make sure I've got them all selected. Ah, looks like I missed one. So we'll grab that as well, and then hit Alt, and again, we'll just recalculate outside. So there they go. They're all nice and uniformly facing the way they should. Now I'm gonna go and grab all of these faces here, just all the way around, and hit X and delete. Okay, perfect. Now we can just hit go into like edge select or vertice select, it doesn't matter, and one at a time we can hold Alt and select this edge loop here and hit Alt F to fill that in with some you know, tries. If you prefer, you can go about it doing, you know, the grabbing like these vertices like this and then hit F like that. Oops, like not Alt F but just F to fill it in like that. Or, you know, I just feel like that's a lot more clicking because you have to grab each of these 4 vertices and then grab those 4 vertices, and then, so, you know, it's just a lot more clicking, so I prefer just going like this, hitting Alt F, one left click there, Alt F. And it's especially nice because you have to hold Alt and left click to grab that loop and then continue to hold Alt and then just push F, and it's a nice kind of like back and forth. You get into like a nice little rhythm there, and I've noticed that one of them kind of does this, and that's okay. We'll fix that up. We'll have to do that one manually. It's not a big deal. Because then what I like to do is I like to go around and just grab all of these edges, whoops, and just hit X and dissolve those. So it's a nice little quad there. going around and doing that. Okay, I think we're almost, okay, here we go. Dissolve, and so for this one, we'll just go ahead and delete these 3 faces, and we'll just fill this one in manually, since it wants to be a jerk. Oh, you know what? That's what it is. Don't fill that in manually. I forgot. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know when this happened. I don't know. I don't think it was there before. I feel like it happened from doing the Alt-F. I'm not sure, though. It shouldn't have, because everything else worked out fine. But if you see, it's got like, I don't know if yours is doing this, but mine, somehow, I did something at some point, and I got this. And so this is a normal. This is what's nice about having the normals turned on. And it sucks because of the theme I'm using, I think, maybe. I don't know if in another theme these edge lines would be a different color or what, you know? But yeah, it's the same color as the edge, but that's actually the normal being displayed here. And that's a normal of a face, because that's what I'm displaying, is I'm displaying my, I have normals for faces turned on. You also have edge and vertice, but I only turned on face. So this normal is displaying from a face, and there shouldn't be a face there. So I'm going to go into wireframe, make sure I'm in face select, and I'm just going to click right there. And it looks like I'm grabbing an edge, but it's not. It's a very thin face, I guess. Can't really find a way to scale it out so it displays as a face, but it's definitely registered as a face. So I'm just going to select that and then delete it. There we go. So yeah, I don't know what I did, you know. Sometimes you just, you know, like I believe I said in the previous video about something else, although it's still doing this. So we'll just delete those faces and manually fill it in. I don't know why. I don't know why it doesn't like that, but I know this ends up working out in the end, and then it's all happy with it. So just whatever, there it is. But yeah, as I had said, like I believe in the previous video, like sometimes you just get into a flow and a nice rhythm, and you're really just like, you know, you're quick firing, you're getting stuff done, and you know, you start doing some funky stuff, and you don't even realize it. Okay, I don't remember having deleted the faces up there, but I did? Huh. I deleted those? I don't remember going back and deleting those faces, but I will just double check here. I want a wireframe. Looks like I did. Yeah, because I don't want to delete those faces, because those are those top faces there. And the normals here, this is fine. The normals right here facing the opposite direction and all right here, that's fine, because these are not three-dimensional, right? This is a single flat plane. So like if I grab this, and that's the underside of it. So we do want it to face out that way. We're not going to add any, we're not going to solidify this to add any depth to it. This face here is that one under the lid, right? And this one here is this little bit here. So this is all good and well, right? But we are going to do some like corrective measures on that. And how we're going to do this is, instead of how we had done before, where we took out both this top and bottom edge to try to like, you know, solidify this rim a little more, is we're just going to take this bottom edge, holding Alt and left click to get this bottom edge loop, right? If you can see it all the way around there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit E to extrude, S to scale. I'm going to bring that in like, I don't know, like one click like that, down to like 0.9, just so it's a nice little rim like that. Before I go any further, I'm just going to come up here real quick, and I'm going to check to make sure I filled in this face. I did not, so with edge select, I'm going to grab this, fill it in, and because all of the other normals are consistent, it should fill it in with the normal going as it should. Perfect. Pretty much that's something like, you know, I should have done. I just, you know, I was cruising, you know, I was in the zone and I was cruising, but that is kind of something that we should have done when we initially started modeling out the inside. As soon as we started to create some geometry in here, I should have stopped and flipped the normals, because then from then on the normals would have had a better chance, at least more of them being pretty consistent. But I think overall the normals were the least of the problems in here. It's mainly just bad topology. So now what we're going to do is we can go front orthographic, right, with one on the number pad. I'm going to go into wireframe, and I'm going to hit E to extrude, and I'm going to bring it up on the Z. Just tell, like, if you can see that orange selection line, I'm going to bring it up with that one more click, just so it matches with this edge right here. Right, and so I'll come inside here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Right, so now it's kind of, it's like, you know, level with that edge there. And then what we're going to do is going to, come in right here, E to extrude, S to scale. I'm going to bring it in pretty close here, and then I'm going to right click, loop tools, and going to turn that into a circle. Now from here, you can do what you want. You know, you can hit G then Z and bring it up a little bit if you want to, you know, kind of give it that look, or you can just do what I'm going to do, because I'm sick of this. And I'm just going to scale it in so it hides within the radius of our little pillar here. And then I'm going to hit F to fill that face, right? And this should be fine with the normal facing that way. Oh wait, sorry, no, that normal is not facing that way. I got tricked. Oh no, see, I got tricked again. That is the normal of the top face of this pillar, so ignore me. I got tricked. It gets me still sometimes. After all these years, I still get fooled by them damn normals. Okay, so with that, I want to say that should be good. We can just do a quick little check here. There's a number of things we can do. So we can make sure we're in edge or vertices select, that we don't have anything selected. So we could, just to make sure, we can select everything and hit with A, and then hit Alt A to unselect everything. Or you can just like click way off into empty space, and then come up here to select. And then we're going to do select all by trait. We'll check interior faces. It's good to do this while in wireframe. Okay, so nothing has been selected. We'll come up here to select, go down to select all by trait, and do non-manifold. And it looks like we're good. Nothing has been selected. So there we have it. Now we have, as far as Blender is concerned, perfectly manifold, consistent, like normals and topology, right? The geometry and everything. It's good. And I think, honestly, this looks better than what I had done before. I like this kind of like lip here. And, you know, I think having this kind of cone shape going up, that's totally preference. I just think personally I like having it flush with this pillar because I think that looks pretty nice, right? Like it's not just it looks like it's grounded, and like you wouldn't drop it or something or knock it the wrong way, and then because this part up here was loose before, that it's just gonna like fall over because it's just got this thin base down here. I think this looks pretty good. Okay, so now with that done, what we're gonna do, like I said, there's multiple ways of going about this, or like just generally you know, removing extra topology or like reducing it and just kind of like remeshing the whole thing. There's multiple different ways of going about it, but for the sake of the video and because it's such a basic model, I'm just going to use the Decimate Modifier because it works out pretty nicely. So with our little lantern bit here selected, come down to the modifiers tab right here, and we'll bring in a Decimate Modifier, and then we'll just switch it to planar. And when it seems to be defaulted with an angle of 5 degrees, or it just kind of does that based off of my model, whatever the case. But if we go into wireframe, we can see that kind of works out pretty nicely. So we'll just hit apply on that, and then we'll grab the little faces here that we had separated into a separate mesh, and go ahead and do the same thing, add a decimate, switch it to planar, and then just go ahead and apply. And so like we can grab these and like you can see like, okay, sweet, we can work with this. Awesome. Okay, now we can start marking some seams. But one more thing before we do that, something that I always like to do is, before I get into all that, is I'm going to come over here. I've switched my view so you can actually see it now. And I'm going to click right here for under our materials tab for the object we have selected. We'll come over here to the Polygon Material Converter. I'm going to click this folder here, and it'll bring up like, you know, a little file search or whatever, and just find wherever you have your textures. I've got like a big old folder full of them, and just scroll down wherever it's at, find the Metal Corroded Heavy. You'll double click that. It'll have another folder in it, and then you'll have this one. Ignore previews. Sometimes this one here, it'll be metalness, regular, whatever. Just click the one that's not previews. And then I've got the 3K one. And then when you get this and you see all the different maps, you can just hit accept. You don't have to pick any particular one. Because if we come over here, once we've done that, we can actually hit, sorry, with it loaded, or with our object selected. Now we hit load and apply, and it's going to apply that material. And if we come over to shading, it's even done this, where they've got like a little node group here put together, and this controls all the values for the different maps that are plugged into it. So it's nice and simple. It's not like a big nauseating, like, you know, web of nodes to look at. Real nice. So now we can get started. I'm going to start in solid because it's, you know, I'll be switching over to material preview after each time I unwrap to just kind of get a good look at it. And also, it's always important, I'm not sure if I've done this already, but before we start doing all that, in object mode, hit Control A and just apply all transforms. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to fly through this because it is a lot of, like, there is going to be a lot of repetition when I get to these bars. And so I'll show you how I go about doing the bars, and then I'll just, like, skip to, you know, when I'm done with it. But for now, the first thing that I always like to do when it comes to unwrapping is I always start with the bottom. And I'm not going to take these edges right here. I'm going to take it all the way around just like that, like a nice cutout all the way around the bottom. Because typically in a lot of, you know, meshes, you know, you're not going to see the bottom, right? It's just not. You know, a lot of things aren't floating in the air. Now, somebody, because this is a lantern, it could be up on a street pole, you know, like a street pole lamp or something. It could be in somebody's hand and they're holding it. But, like, I mean, come on. Who's going to be, you know, looking at it like, well, hold on. Let me, let me get a look here. So, okay, I'm going to take all of those, right? Whoops. And just kind of always double check. Looks like I messed up right here. Just always give it a nice once over before you commit to marking the edge, making sure you've got everything you want. Looks pretty good. And then I'm going to Control E and mark seam. And so now I can hit A to select everything, U and unwrap, and we can already see that the bottom looks much better. I mean, it already looked pretty good, and it doesn't matter. It's the bottom, right? But that's where I'm going to start. And so now basically the first focus I stick to is going around all of the things that I know it's just a nice, easy, like, circle or like a full square all the way around. I'll show you what I mean. Kind of like how I did the bottom here. And also briefly, if you're not, you know, if you haven't seen any of my other videos or anything, and you're not super familiar with like UV unwrapping and all that jazz, basically the way I like to look at it is I like to imagine my mesh here, my 3D mesh, is like a piece of origami. And what we're doing here with UV unwrapping is we're trying to kind of find areas that we could isolate along, you know, edges and stuff of our piece of origami, our little 3-dimensional mesh. Where we can kind of start to unfold it and lay it out nice and flat again, like the original piece of paper it started as, right? That's how I like to look at it, because that's what Blender is going to do. As we mark these seams, Blender is going to use that as a means of kind of like laying out our model in a flat fashion, and it just allows textures, as you can see, they're not displaying properly because it's trying to take a 2-dimensional image and just kind of wrap it around a 3-dimensional thing, you know? So this is how we get it to display nice. So anyway, I'm going to go back to layout here. And I'm going to start by, I'm going to come in, not inside the mesh. I'm going to come inside the lantern here. And I'm going to take this whole edge right around here. I'm going to hold Alt and Shift. And, well, you can just hold Alt, but whatever. I'm in the habit of holding Alt and Shift. Whatever. And select that. And then it's going to do this because it has that edge there. It's going to select around like that. So I'm just going to holding Shift, I'm going to deselect these 2 edges here, and then select these 2 edges there, hit Control E and mark seam. So I basically mark the seam all the way around the base of this and all the way around the base of out there. And so pretty much like that's my main focus, is just going around anywhere where there's like a sharp 90-degree angle, right? And you can get away with not doing that in some spots. You don't have to mark every 90-degree edge. It's just kind of like, usually the first thing I'll go for is all of the sharp 90-degree like angled edges here. So this one's not wanting to select properly because of these edges right here, but I think that's good. Just like that, we'll mark seam to make sure, kind of mouse around. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'll just mark these as well. I'll just scroll up this thing, marking all these. So this is the first thing I do, is I'm just gonna go around marking all this stuff, selecting that edge and that edge, because that'll happen. We'll have that now like that. So like if I'm selecting, because this is a face, but these edges shouldn't like loop around into each other. Like if I'm holding Alt and I'm clicking that edge, it should only be selecting that edge loop, but the fact that it's selecting both of these edge loops means that they're, you know, it's a closed loop somewhere. And so I just mouse around and aha, there it is. This edge is, you know, closing it off. So then I just hold Alt and Shift and select these edge loops here as well, and then I can deselect that one. Again, this is such a small area that you probably don't even have to worry about that, but just for like the larger areas, like at the bottom, that was definitely something that I wanted to do. Scroll around here, make sure there's no others. Okay, holding Shift and Alt, select that one as well, just like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the top up here. Make sure there's no additional edges hiding anywhere in there. Okay, looks pretty good. Control E, mark seam. And so for this one here, you could take the outside edge, but I'm going to take this one. Although, it looks like it's taking the whole thing, so that is a bummer. So I'm just going to have to manually select it because it's just simpler that way rather than, you know, deselecting the other one. Oh gosh. And it's not simple because Blender keeps putting me inside my mesh, dude. I don't want to be in there. Okay. Okay, mark that seam. There we go. Alright. Let's see. So I'm pretty sure for now that's going to cover like the large bases of the inside. We're still going to have to go inside and mark some edges here, but for now I am happy with that. I'm going to go Control E, mark seam, because now I'm going to move on to the other kind of like the simple things. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm actually going to with face select, I'm going to hide this like umbrella looking shape up here just to get it out of my way momentarily. Just going to do that, hit H to hide, and then I'll select these faces here, H to hide, and now I can actually see in here at all this stuff. So unfortunately this one too isn't going to behave properly. If you try to hit hold Alt and left click, it's going to grab some unwanted edges like that. It'll go that way. We don't want that. Just like we had done for the bottom, I'm just going to go around these, and I'm going to take those little pieces with this whole top face here. So I'm not going to select these inside edges right there. Just going to look back and make sure that I haven't already. Whoops. Got to be careful. Looks like I grabbed an edge way over there. Just all around the top real quick. Alright, I'll mark that, and then I'm going to take this inside, the edge around the base of this thing, deselect those, make sure I come in here and select that. Also looks like I missed that edge there, so I'll select that, mark seam, and then I can also take the this edge here. Looks like it didn't go all the way around because of these two edges here, so I'll just mouse over here, select those, mark seam, take a look here, make sure I'm satisfied with that, and move on. Select this top edge here, select this here. Again, it's doing some funky business. We'll just deselect that, select that, select that. It's going to do the same thing around the bottom here. We can just, well, actually for this bottom one here, I'll just deselect that, and I'll actually deselect yeah, here, I'll just do it this way because I don't want both of those edges. I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's such a small area. In fact, you know, like whatever, just to prove my point, it really doesn't matter. This is so small that it doesn't matter. But normally you would just pick either this outside edge or the inside edge, you know, wherever you have like this kind of a shape like this where it's like just one 90-degree angle after another, you would just pick one of the, at each level, just pick one of the inside or the outside edges, and you're going to be good with that. And then also something I'll usually like to do is I'll try to, like, I'll hit Control 1, find the back side of my model. And for something like this, it's kind of hard to determine what really is the back side. I guess you could base it off of this handle, right? You would think either this or this side is going to be the front, you know, typically. You'd think you'd have like this ring kind of like front facing or something. Like if it was in somebody's hand, you know, they're not like, I don't imagine like they're holding it like this in their hand. I guess they could, right? That'd be comfortable to a degree, but I don't know, right? I don't know. So, but yeah, normally I'll just find like whatever's like the backside, and then you can take like this like edge going down that shape so it also will split it along this edge and then fold it out like lengthwise as well. But you don't normally have to do that stuff. Only for like certain shapes I've noticed that really helps. I don't think it's super necessary here. Because like basically I'll show you what I mean if it'll let me, if the UV map is not super cluttered, which it looks like it is, but I have some separation going on over here, so this is nice. So basically if you don't mark like an edge like I was saying, if you don't take an edge down like this, then it results in a shape like this. And that's not entirely like the end of the world, but you know, you could just like, that is a fix. So here's control 1 to go into back, and I'll just mark that seam. And then so if I unwrap that, then it should lay it out like a square. Let me just find where it is now. There it is, nice and squared up. See? So that's what I'll do, is I'll mark the top, and then I'll mark like the bottom, you know, and then find like an edge that just kind of cuts down the backside. And I do the backside because I typically, right, like that's just like the kind of first rule, is like finding where, like what side of the model is going to be less seen or visible, because that's going to create a seam right there. You can't really see it at the moment because the texture is being displayed so fuzzy and like blurry, but it is there. There is a seam there. All right, so anyway, whoops, and that is also an option. Excuse me. You could just like separate this out. Like you could take this whole top piece with this little thing, separate it into a separate mesh. Do whatever it is that helps you kind of like go through. I'm relatively comfortable enough going through it and marking this out as one big thing, but in some cases you might have to separate it into a smaller mesh, just because there's not enough room here for this, you know, all the little parts of this object for them to all get like good detail from this texture here. If you're just using like doing like a render, like a still image render, you can grab the pieces and like scale them up so that they get more of that definition from the texture in there. Like I'll show you an example with the top piece here. 3 for face select, I'll grab this, and so now I will go back into material, and with it selected over here, I can like scale it up right in here, so we get more of that, you know, you can actually see, and it's like, oh yeah, that looks good, right? The problem with that is that we have so many parts, and then, you know, eventually you're gonna have stuff that's overlapping outside of the bounds of this, and when it goes outside the bounds, the texture is still displayed there. It just starts to repeat. Basically this square image will just repeat itself all the way around, and you know, so for a still image render or something, or like for like a little animation within Blender, it's fine. But if you're trying to, like, you know, bake out maps and, you know, take this over into like a game engine, you can't do that. It all has to be, because when you bake a map, it's only going to bake what's within the confines of this this like square. So let's see here, just an extra little tidbit there. Let's see. Okay, so next I think I'm gonna just take a quick look around, see if there's any other big obvious ones that stand out immediately. I would say the only really obvious one is we could grab this edge right here, just holding shift, going along and selecting this outer edge right here that's in between each of these pillars here, and we can mark that. Okay, Control E, mark seam. You can even select everything, do another little unwrap. Doesn't seem to have made a huge difference there. That's alright, because we still need to do some more. And so now there's going to be other areas that I'll have to go back over as we move along, but I'm going to go ahead and jump on to doing the most repetitive and annoying part, and that's going to be cutting these things out, right? These little bars on the side. And this is how I do it. And the only reason it's annoying is because we have these little small edges on either side, right here at the bottom and the top, and especially the angle right here, they're tucked into these crevices. So you got to do a lot of like panning around and a lot of like grabbing these little edges, because I don't believe alt left click really helps a whole lot for this. But this is what I do, is I just go right up the side, cutting it right where it meets the, whatever you want to call these parts, like these parts in between, right, that are in between the bars. I just follow it along that and cut it all the way out along that. I'm not taking any of these edges out here, right? So like if you're looking at it at this angle, it almost looks like, oh crap, I missed this edge. Nope. That's why it's nauseating. Sometimes you got to look, getting close, and it wraps right underneath and just follows it down all the way down to where it meets this edge right here where I marked at the bottom. And I do that all the way up and all the way back down the other side. But when we get up here to the top, this is what I do. I take this edge here and I go around like this, and then I grab it like that. And then also not alternatively, but also you could even take like a little edge up here and go around like here, I'll show you. We can go up like this. You can do this if you want. That'll just kind of like, I don't know, it'll create a seam there though, but this is such a small part, you know, it's not really a huge deal. I'm not going to do that for now. I'll wait and see if it is necessary to really bring out some more detail, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you one more time how I do this, and then I'll just skip ahead like 20 minutes from now when I'm all done. So again, I'm just going to start at the top here. I can take these edges right here where it cuts out this top bit. Whoops, getting all turned around. And then I'm going to, whoops, I guess I should probably start on the one that I was already on. So yeah, from the top right here, take this edge here, and cut it all the way down, panning up and down as I need to get into these little creviced areas. Taking this big edge, right? Got to take that big edge on either side. Oh no, I got lost. The damn camera, dude, just jumping all over the place. Let me go back to layout here. Where's my selections? There they are. It's hard to see when you've already marked some edges because like the orange and the red blend in really well together. Okay, so I'm right here though. Again, like going back into solid mode can really help with the visual aid, you know? It's hard to really see what's going on with the color of the edges mixed into the color of the texture. Okay, marking out those edges just like that. And then also what I need to do is come inside, and I'm going to take this edge right here, right there at the top. I'm going to take that edge. We'll probably even have to take you know, maybe these edges here. I'm not going to worry about that right now because we can choose to separate this little scooped in bit right here on the sides. We can choose to take this edge with, and that'll officially cut that out so they're separate from that. But for now, this is all I'm going to do. And so I suggest, yeah, just kind of sticking to that. If you've gotten to this point, just stick to that, focus on that, get that done, and I will catch back up with you momentarily. Okay, so I've finished marking out all of the edges along, like, you know, cutting out the little bars here. I'll even go into solid mode to give you another look, just so you can have a better idea of kind of what we're looking for. And also, look at that, I missed one. It's always good to kind of do a once-over. You can do it in wireframe if that helps, which also another thing, which looks like I accidentally hit the option, which did it for me. If you come up to right here, you can toggle X-ray, and that's what kind of really makes wireframe function as a wireframe. So you can turn off X-ray if you just feel like it helps you visualize. I find this really helpful. And it, like, yeah, sometimes I'm always accidentally doing it because I think it's Alt-Z. Yeah, sometimes my fat thumbs, I'll hit Alt-Z. And so, yeah, if you feel that helps, I certainly feel like it does. And you can kind of just take a quick look around, make sure, you know, you got all the edges, you're not missing anything. I think I got everything. You check top, bottom. The main thing, the part that's like really easy to miss something that's going to make a huge difference is these edges along these little sidebars. But if you've gotten all those, then we should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and turn X-ray back on, and I'm going to go into material preview here for this unwrap. So as you can see, before I even do it, you can see the texture here is really scuffed all over these sidebars. It looks pretty good down there, looks pretty decent up in there, looks well enough right here on the top. I mean, it's still pretty scuffed, and most certainly, definitely scuffed right here, but check this out. We're gonna hit A, hit U, unwrap, and immediately it looks a lot better. I can even go into object mode here and get like a real good look. Really nice looking. It's not perfect by any means because there are still some edges that we can mark out. Like I said, we can definitely still fine tune this, but this already looks really nice, you know? I think so, especially from what it looked like before. We don't have a whole lot of that scuffing going on. It's not like super blurred, you know? There are some areas though that we can improve, and I think one would be, we can start by going into, Control 1 on the number pad to go into back view here, back orthographic, not face select. I can grab this edge here, and I can mark that edge. I don't have to, but I can mark it, yeah, just mark that one real quick. And then also, as I had said before, we can come in here and grab all of these edges. That'll completely separate our sidebars from these little scooped in bits that fit between them. If we just mark, mark all of these. I think I got them all. Control E, mark seam. And we can do another unwrap, and we can see how that's improved things. Seems like it's improved definitely the sidebars for sure, but these can definitely still use a little something something. And it's because we do have all of these, you know, kind of sharp edges in here that we haven't really marked. So what we can do is we can start by taking, you know, when you get into this part where you're doing like the little, like you're really just trying to fine tune that detail, just do like one thing at a time. So I'm going to take these edges here, these inside edges right at the top, just like that, holding Shift and Alt as I go around, clicking those, Control E, and unmark that seam. And then I'll do an unwrap and see what that looks like. And it's also always good to open up your UV editing so that you can actually see your UV map here. And something else that you can do, you know, this looks fine. In fact, actually, I wonder if it's set already. Yeah, I think it is. Okay, my margin spacing here was different, I think before. I think before it was set to like a 0.01. I think. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But you can play with that margin setting, and that's basically going to handle the spacing between these. And it looks like I have some overlap, which is unfortunate because they should not be overlapping. The only reason I could think that they're overlapping is because I missed an edge. And this is why it's good to look at this. Because if you look at the general shape of this piece right here, if I grab this and I hit L, it shouldn't do that for starters. It shouldn't be grabbing all of that other stuff, especially like if I'm in its face select. It'll always do it in vertice, but if I do it in face select, it should not be grabbing all this other stuff. Because I was trying to show is that if you look at the general shape of this piece, it's the same as this piece right over here. And if I mouse over this and hit L, it selects just that island. And these are the same like shapes, so it's one of the sidebars, they're just rotated differently. And so that tells me right there that I missed an edge. So I'm going to go ahead and mouse over this one and just like kind of box select these bottom faces here. I'll go into wireframe so I can see where this piece, which one of these pieces it is. So it's this sidebar here, and so I've definitely missed an edge. I'll go into wireframe, turn off X-ray, just kind of get a look. I've missed an edge here, something right there. Okay, maybe that's that edge earlier that I noticed I missed and I didn't mark it. So let's mark that. Let's go ahead and before we do anything else, just kind of take a quick look at the bottom here as well. Because, you know, there's a good chance I missed another edge as well. It looks like that's the only edge I missed. So let's go back into Material Preview. We'll unwrap that, and now let's take a look here. Now it looks like, well, it's kind of hard to tell. Let's see here. It's really difficult when it's all overlapped like this, but let's grab these faces here, and let's see which one that is. Oops. Okay, it's up here at the top. This top section here. Well, I mean it's this sidebar. It's not specifically at that top. That was just the faces that weren't overlapped that I could see to select. So there we go. I missed that small little edge there. So it's, you know, something that's very good to do. Just make sure you go around and double check all of the edges. You know, that's what this next phase is in this video. I'm going to skip through me kind of double checking everything and fine tuning my UV so that everything is laid out nice as it is like this, so nothing's overlapped, right? Like if I hit A to select everything should be like this, where everything's kind of like nicely spaced out, to where I can, with face select, I can hit L over an island, and it's just that island that gets selected, and it's nicely spaced out. And then again, whenever you do, you know, A to select and you do a unwrap, you can open up that unwrap thing and you can adjust this margin. I'm going to adjust mine to a 0.01, so that gives everything a little bit more space. It's going to make each island a little bit smaller to fit it all in there, and that's going to kind of screw with the detail. But just for now, to help me kind of visualize, that's what I'm going to keep my margin at. And then you can set it back to like a 0.001 or something if it will work out that way. I don't know. For now, though, this is what I like. So anyway, again, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my UVs looking pretty good. Everything's separated out into its own little islands, but there is a few little problem areas, like right here. You can see that's not looking very good, and that's kind of present on the side of every single one of these things. So ideally, what I usually go for is only selecting the two back edges when I'm working with like a relatively squared kind of object. But when it doesn't want to work out, then we just have to make some sacrifices. So I'm going to take this whole edge all the way down, and preferably, or hopefully, I should only have to take one side. We'll see what this looks like though. Go ahead and unwrap that. And we'll see what it looks like on the other side. No, still not liking it. So we'll just go ahead and we'll mark that out as well. And we'll just unwrap that. Unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes. Now, there are other alternatives. There are other things that we could do as far as like just unwrapping in general, but I think this is going to work out pretty good. And like this texture in particular, it's not too unkind when it comes to the seams. So we have a seam there, you know, but it doesn't really stand out too bad, you know. I think it actually blends in pretty nicely. So, you know, that's something that could be done as well. You can just kind of go through and can't do alt left click because it takes that edge out like that, so that's unfortunate, but just kind of take these edges here along each of these on the sides, and then we'll mark that out. And so other than that, because I'll just skip through once again, me kind of marking those side edges there. But other than that, another thing that can be done is right here, this cylinder though, we're going to make this, this is going to be a different material, but just to kind of like, you know, make sure that if it were not like if it were a texture rather than, because we're just going to create a custom emission material, that it's actually kind of displaying at least somewhat decently. Because as it was, I had missed a few small edges around like the bases and stuff, but I also went ahead and I marked this edge, because if I clear this edge and I unwrap, you'll see that it's kind of doing this number, and I didn't really like that. So usually I find that with a lot of the rounded, kind of like ringed shapes, that's when it's like really necessary that you take, I'm going to go into Control 1 for back view, and I'm just going to take one of these edges. It can be this somewhat centered one that just goes straight down the middle, and I'm going to pick, like, do that all the way. Just take that all the way down. Whoops, not clear. Mark seam. And if there's any areas I've missed here, let's go up here and do the same here. We'll take that, take this edge, whoops, and this one here, and we will mark that. And we can do another unwrap, and it's looking a little better. Now you can see, of course, like we've got a seam there, and it's way more noticeable when the texture is all scuffed and skewed like that. But, you know, we'll just have to figure out what the problem is here. Oh, I realize that that doesn't help. Don't grab this thing. If you grab this with everything else and you're doing an unwrap, like, first of all, it takes up all of this, but also when you try to do an unwrap, it throws this exception down here, and that might confuse you, where it says failed to unwrap, you know, to solve one island or whatever, may need to add edge seams. And so you can just come in here and grab this inside edge of this, mark that, you can grab it and unwrap just like that. And if you don't want it to be ringed out like that, then what we can do is we could go into front orthographic, bring it up like this, tab into edit mode, and we can just alt left click this ring here, Control E, mark that seam, go back into object mode, and we can bring it right back down to where it was. And then you unwrap, and it's got like that nice little square going on there. So anyway, let's go ahead and grab this now, not that, unwrap, and everything should be fine. Well enough anyways for now. What we're going to do though is we are going to switch the material for this. Now this is the optional part when I had mentioned the other material that we could use. I'm going to go ahead and do this. So over here on our materials tab, this is the material we're currently using, and everything in our object is using it. I'm going to hit this little plus to add another slot, and I'm going to open up that folder for the Polygon Material Converter add-on, and I'm just gonna go back here and find the metal, where is it, Spotty Discoloration. I'm gonna open that up, and then I will load and apply, and that's gonna, because I had that new slot selected, it's gonna put that, load and apply that material to that slot. So now I'm gonna go into front orthographic and wireframe. I gotta turn on X-ray. I'm just gonna box select these faces here. I'll go up to the top, and to get this top one without selecting any of these, any of the faces over there, we just have to kind of like angle right in here. We can just box select. That's not a really good angle, is it? Oh no, because I'm in the, I forgot about that face there. Okay. That's okay. If we got to do it manually, we can do it manually holding Alt and Shift and just kind of clicking around here, if it'll let us. Something like that. There might even be these little bits here that got separated by rogue edges. Just kind of mouse around, make sure it's all good. Okay. And so with all of those selected while in edit mode, you can grab this slot with the Metal Spotty Discoloration and just click Assign. And then if we go Material Preview and swap back, we see that those have now a separate material from the rest. And the material actually looks better even from this distance even than the other, you know, the corroded metal looked at first. I think that looks pretty good. Still kind of keeps into the, you know, form of like, you know, kind of old. Although, you know, this metal corroded looks like straight out of Lord of the Rings, but still, you know. And then so we'll take this a little further because I'm done with UV mapping and unwrapping and all that. I'm happy with the edges I've marked, so I'm just going to go ahead and switch back over to layout mode here. And now I'm going to, with this object still, I'll go into edit mode. I'm going to add another slot, one more material slot here, and this one I'm just going to click right here where it says new. And then I can double click this, and I'm going to rename this just light. You can rename it whatever, but that's going to be the light that we're going to apply to this tube in here. Before I go any further, I'll grab this object here, come over here to this drop down next to where it says new, this little drop down right here, you can click that and we can assign this the whatever one you want. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it the Spotty Discoloration, right? So it's a little bit of contrast up here, and there we go. So there's that. And then the grabbing this tube is easy. We can just wireframe face select and you'll see those, you know, the whoops, if I go into front view here, when we have face select, you'll see that line of purple dots there. That's like the center of the faces, right? So we can just box select right over that, and then we got that whole tube there, and we can assign it our new light material, and you see it's different now as well. Okay, and before we do anything with the light, let's go ahead and make sure we tab back into object mode and hit Alt-H to unhide our little window panels here, right? Our glass panels. And for this, it's its own separate object still, right? That's how we want to keep it. Well, in our materials tab here, we'll come over here and click new, and then we can double click this and we'll just name this glass. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to our shading tab. And with the glass, we're looking at the glass one here. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to keep this simple for the sake of this video. We'll selecting that principled BSDF that was there, so I can hit Control Z to bring it back here. So this is how it'll start out when you add a new material. And we'll just select this. You can tell it's selected by the little highlight there, and you can hit X and it'll just delete that. We'll hit Shift A. We're going to bring in under shader here, we're going to bring in a glass BSDF. Nice and simple, and we can slap that on there. If we wanted to, we could even actually, if we wanted to take it, I guess, like a little further, we could also go Shift A to shader, and we could bring in like glossy. I really don't know how much, like, you know, like if you wanted to add like a little bit of gloss to the glass, whoops. I don't know how much that really impacts the glass. I'm not sure, but we're going to do it. So then we'll hit Shift A again, and then under shader, we'll bring in a mixed shader. And then we'll slot the glass into the top and the glossy into the bottom here. And then we can slot that to the surface here on the glass. So the glass is down to 0 on the roughness, and the glossy we'll leave at 0.5. And let's just get a look here. If we go into rendered, we're not really going to be able to see much, but just kind of to see. Okay, we can see through it though because we can see our tube, so that's good. So next step, I'm gonna go back to material, or I'll go back to like solid, I guess. So now I'll hide this momentarily. Let's select this object, and so this is where it gets a little annoying when you have multiple materials on a single object and you're working here within our node system here. Do not click this. Don't click this thing because that's basically going to like assign different materials or whatever. Just going to go over here to slots, and that's how you choose which material slot for this object that we're currently working on. So right now we're just going to keep it right here for the light, or you know, you can check slot 3 light. Perfect. Now we're going to get rid of the principled BSDF. We're going to just keep this lighting pretty simple. So we're going to hit Shift A, and we'll bring in first of all an emission. I'm going to hit Shift A, come up here to Input, and we're going to bring in a layer weight. I'm going to move that back over here, Shift A again. I'm going to bring in from Converter, bring in a color ramp, slap that right there. Just move this over here. Yeah, something like right here. Then Shift A again, bring in a shader, and I'm gonna bring in another glossy right here with the emission. And then Shift A, bring in a mix shader right in here. And that should be all that we need, if I'm not mistaken. I could be forgetting something, but I don't think so. I think this is all we're gonna need. So we can kind of start to build this out, and you can see what happens as it goes. We'll go into rendered view here. So first we'll just take our mix shader and we'll plug that in right here to our material output. Plug it into the surface, right? And we'll take the emission here, plug that into the top shader socket of the mix shader, and take the glossy and plug that into that bottom bit there. We can go ahead and immediately we can adjust the strength on this. I think I'm gonna like really crank mine up, do something like 30. And you can already like see some lighting there. If you wanted to like take it a step further with the lighting, I already have a plane that I'm just gonna like unhide right here. You can just bring in a regular plane, or if you want, another optional one, I guess I didn't point out, is this texture here that I'm using for the plane is the Ground Forest Roots 001 that you can also grab from Polygon if you so choose. Alright, so you know, you can kind of, you know, get a good look here, like see what's going on, what it's doing. Pretty nice, casting out little shadows from the bars there. But anyway, so the glossy too with this light, it's like minimal, you know, it's just a little something to add, you know, a little extra spice on there, you know. So now what we'll do is we're actually going to take the color from our color ramp, plug that into the color of our emission, and that's going to change things a bit, but it's only momentarily. And now we'll take the facing from our layer weight and we're going to slap that in right here to the factor socket of the color ramp. And it does some weird stuff, but that's okay. What we need to do here is we're going to pick some colors. Now, if you don't want to pick any color, you don't have to, like, you know, you don't really have to do anything. I would just say that it's going to be a little tricky here. Let's see. I've never really tried to use this kind of setup with only like a white light. I think the best way would be you could, let's see, because like regardless it's gonna change some stuff, but if I kept the one over here just white and I pick this one for instance and maybe turn this one to like a dark kind of yellow, and then I turn that darkness down a little bit, maybe not that much, it's probably, since it's yellow, it's probably good enough being like that. And then we're going to take this and we're going to slide this up. Essentially what we're doing with this setup here with the layer weight and the color ramp is we're going to try to make it look, you know, like it's not just like this one solid white line. You know, I don't believe this lighting right here. I don't believe that bulb. So I just want to make it a little bit more believable. And so we're just going to bring this dark color down, bring the white up maybe a little bit more, somewhere like right in here. We're going to bring them in like real close to each other. Now it's probably not going to be visible with this color setup. Like I said, I've never really like tried it with this. I'm always using like actual colors, but we can probably, no, really the only way you're going to end up seeing it is if we move this over here. Or actually, hold on, that could be it. Sometimes you have to like really slide these over. Whoops. Like slide this one down some more, bring that out, but you see it's like it's changing the lighting, like the color of the lighting too, so that kind of sucks. But yeah, okay, so you know, it's really difficult actually. I've never noticed, it's actually really difficult to achieve that kind of look. I can see it though, you can see it, you just got to get in close. You see that? So it does work with this kind of with this color scheme where you keep the, like, try to maintain as much of that white light as possible. Excuse me, I keep knocking my mic. But if you look real close right here, you can see that kind of darker yellow color right there. We can even try to like darken it up a little bit. There we go. That's what we needed to do, like really darken it up. But like I said, that really affects the color of the lighting. So it's hard to maintain that white light. I know there's a way, I don't know all my colors, you know, I'm not really good with the whole color system and blending of colors. I know there's a way that you can kind of give off that look, you know, it'd probably work better rather than like a yellow light. Maybe it would look better with like a soft blue or something, you know. But yeah, that's essentially what we're looking for right there. It's a little bit more difficult to see with this color setup, but we just wanted that where there's this kind of like hot center, you know, like the centralized light in the center there, and then like kind of like the fall off, so it gives a little bit more of that look that like the tube is an actual material, you know, and there's the light that is like traveling through it, you know, and, like, you know what I mean, if that makes sense. I'm not like very good at explaining that stuff, but I would say that's what I'm going for here. But yeah, we can, and then with this, you know, you can kind of move these apart if you want, and you can change these colors, you know. You can get all kinds of different lights. We can make it blue if we wanted, so we can switch this one to like a nice dark blue. Bring that over. I guess that actually does stand out better, just blue in general. But we can do something like that, and then if we wanted, we can make this like not like that dark. Better to keep it like somewhere right in here, so it's got more of that white value. And again, you know, it just kind of inevitably, you know, you lose some of that lighting to it. But we can find a nice healthy mix right in here, something like that. See, I think that's like more of like what I was thinking, where we've got this kind of, you know, it kind of looks like white light, you know, like a nice white light. It's kind of like a little bluish hue to it, but the, like, you know, like especially the bulb itself, I guess, but the light it's producing, you know, pretty nice. So yeah, we can just like crank up the strength a little bit here if we wanted. Strength, it doesn't make a huge difference. I mean, it obviously does, but another factor, like you'll be seeing right here, like, oh, why isn't it like seem to be lighting up much of this plane and stuff? And that's honestly because of like scale. It's like more an issue of scale than anything else. I actually have to reset the origin here, I guess. Center of mass, there we go. So if we like scale this out and I bring it up, that's when you start to like really see, like, you know, the lighting starts to really do something. It's just kind of more of an issue of that. But because this is a lantern and it is a relatively small thing, you don't expect it to do a whole lot. But there are other things you can do, like post-processing, that kind of give off more of a glow. And there's probably more you can do here, but again, like, I'm just keeping it simple for the sake of this. And again, we can also bring that roughness down on the glossy, see if that even helps. I don't think so. It's like you don't see it because it's just such a bright light. You can't really appreciate the gloss, at least not in this scene for some reason. I don't know, because I've done this in another project and the glossy really popped. It was nice. Okay, and now what we can do is we can come over here. You can just hit Alt H or whatever. I know exactly which one it is though on this, and we can just unhide our glass, right? We were forgetting all about that. So again, you know, we're just going to keep this simple. You can remove the glossy. I'm going to show you though, like we can drop the the roughness down, and so we get a little bit more of this where we can actually kind of see through there. On the glass too, like, hold on, if I crank the roughness all the way up, kind of gives like a halfway point between this. Like if we were to take the roughness on the glass and we crank that, you get this kind of a look, which is pretty, you know, this is like what you would expect to see in a lot of games where they don't really model out the inside. And it's kind of funny if like we were to go with this kind of look, because it just kind of undoes all the work that we did cleaning up the inside and getting it to look decent. But it's funny because even still, like, this looks better than it otherwise would have if we were to just grab these planes and say slap like an emission shader on that. So like if I add a new material here, and with this plane selected, like I'll create a new material, switch this over to an emission, and I guess I'd have to turn off the other one though, but that's going to be a little too difficult. You'll just have to trust me on this. But if we, like, you know, were to slap an emission on here, I have to actually go into edit mode, select everything, and then assign, you know, if you were to do this, you know, and that's obviously really bright. And that's the other thing too, that tube on the inside, you can adjust that. Like, you know, scaling up the lantern itself as a whole is like not going to do a whole lot for the light. If you actually take the trouble of going into edit mode and just grabbing around the face of that tube and kind of like extending things out and making it a bigger tube, the light it's going to produce is going to be a lot better, you know, because this right here, I'm not going to lie, I can't lie, like that lighting is pretty substantial. I like this, you know, so, but still, you don't get that, you know, again, it's just like this beam, it's just like this kind of like bright, you know, white panel, you know. I don't believe it. And there's things we could do to this to, you know, like with like adding noise textures and stuff to make it a little bit more believable. But yeah, I think overall the other stuff just looks better, if I am being honest. So I'm gonna grab everything. Oh, I'm gonna remove. Oh, okay. Assign that, and then I can remove. Oh, unable to remove it in edit mode. Okay, well, geez. All right. The heck is going on here? Oh. All right. So what we can do though is we can drop the roughness down on this, and you know, you just get like this nice clear glass. But as an option, you could also say just like you wanted to remove the glossy altogether from the picture. So if I just hold control, I think it's like control and shift, and I left click this, it'll show me what just the glasses will look like. So you can kind of see the difference there. Like with just the glass, it's kind of more clean looking, and then with the glossy and the glass combined, we get a little bit more of like a kind of like a noisy, kind of warpy kind of look onto it, you know. I think that looks pretty good. Again, it's just something simple. And so yeah, there's that. I think there was like one other option that I'm leaving out here that I can't remember. Probably like the index of refractions here. You can play around with that. Oh yeah, okay, so I just remembered. Yeah, so something else that you could do if you so chose is you could add a color to the glass if you wanted. Like, you know, you could, you know, make it a little bit, like give it a little bit of a blue tint, you know, which I guess like isn't a very good way of kind of simulating like producing more of like an illumination of the light, but I guess, you know, it works. You could do that, you know, make it look like that light is kind of like illuminating the housing it's in a little better, you know. But yeah, there you have it. That is our lantern. And in fact, actually here, one more added little bonus here is I'm gonna go ahead and take the light, and I'm going to change these colors, I think, maybe just a little bit. Make this just a little bit more blue. Make this one like a little darker. Yeah, something like that's fine. Okay. My glass here, I reset that, right? Here, let me just make sure it's totally reset back to white. Okay. I think I'm pretty happy with all of this. Again, like I said, I'm definitely probably going to go ahead and do it and just like, you know, scale out this tube, you know, and its little housing pieces, the top and bottom housing pieces, just scale it excluding the Z, right? So S to scale, shift to Z, and then just kind of fatten it up, widen it out so it kind of covers a little more area, and that's going to help that little light bulb there produce more light. You could also create multiple, like if you wanted 2 or 3, you know, kind of like in a little pattern in here on that base, however you want, you know. But one thing we can do is we can come over here to compositing, and then it looks like, yeah, I've already got it set up. So I'll go ahead and just delete these, because this is what it's going to look like when you come over to compositing, except it won't. First you have to come up here and hit use nodes, and then you'll see this kind of thing. And then what we'll do is we'll hit Shift A, and we'll bring in a filter. We'll bring in a glare filter right here. And I like the look. We'll just take this image one and we can slot it right here. I like the look of, you've got some options, this one right here. I like this one, the fog glow. I'm gonna set the quality to high. You can play around with these settings here. I think I'll just set the threshold down to like 0.6. You can mouse over it and it tells you the glare filter will only be applied to pixels brighter than this value. So, you know, like basically like, you know, the lower I set it, so I guess I should probably crank it up a little bit, because the lower I set it, then it's gonna provide glare to like pixels that are even out here, you know, like that foggy glare, and I might not want that, you know. So the higher I set this threshold, the more centralized that glow is gonna be. Or, you know, maybe I want it lower and to give it kind of like, especially if I were to put like some volumetric fog in the scene, which might even be a good idea. I could even do that, you know. I'll throw an extra little tidbit in here. How about that? But one more thing for the compositing here. This is kind of like your post-processing. We'll hit Shift A and we'll bring in, this is what I do, you don't have to do this, but I bring in a file output and I slot this in here, and this allows me to choose exactly where I want this to go. And so I'm just going to tell it to go to my freaking desktop because I don't care. That's good enough for me. And so one more thing, just, you know, just an extra little tidbit. You don't got to do it. You don't got to stick around for this. If you've stuck around this far, thank you. But this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go into solid mode real quick. I'm just gonna hide these. Hide all this stuff. Oh man, I have some that are like doubled up. Double. Hold on. There we go. They're doubled up. Get those out of here. Hide those. Okay. I'm gonna Shift A and I'm gonna bring in a cube. I'm gonna bring this up on the Z here. And then I will just scale Shift Z for now, and I'll just bring it out like this. I don't even really need to bring it out that far, honestly, but I'm going to, because like it really only needs to be like as big as like my camera region. And so I think this is honestly even fine, just as long as it encompasses this area, we'll be good, right? So what I'm going to do here is under the materials for this cube, we'll add a new material. I can name this whatever. I'm just going to name it like fog. And for right here under, I think this is where I want it. Yeah, we can go ahead and remove this. So you can click right here and click remove. And then for volume, we'll just add, where is it? I think it's principled volume right here. That's what we want. If I'm not mistaken, let me just get another look in here. I could be wrong. Nope, principled volume. So we're going to slap that in there. And now this is going to be kind of weird. You got to play around with it. See, at first it's like, oh man, it just envelops the scene in darkness, and that's kind of unfortunate. But you just got to play around with like these values here. Like we can bring down the density, and you got to bring this down to something low. So I'm going to start with like, let's try a 0.1. Let's try that. Let's see if it doesn't seem to, you know, if it's not messing with the scene too much. Okay, fine. Looking pretty good. We can try like 0.2, something that's gonna like leave our light here. We can even kind of bring our camera in a bit. Get real close up on that lantern, so we can actually kind of see this. We can bring it over on the X, center it up. All right, something like this. Okay, just like click out here. That'll select the fog. And you know, there's all these different things you can adjust. You can adjust like the color of the fog, right? Like you can make it darker. I don't know that I necessarily want to do that, but I'll just leave it like that for now. Adjust the density, of course, like I said. And I don't even know how to pronounce this. I'm not going to explain this right now because I can't remember. I can't recall right now, but I remember I was playing around with this and I was like, oh, okay, that's what it does. So you could probably mouse over it and it'll give you like a little explanation, but I don't know. I remember I was playing around with it one time and it you know, it kind of made sense, and I was like, okay, I understood how I could apply it, but I don't really know how to explain it to you, so I'll do that in another video perhaps. But that is something that you can mess around with as well. But let's take this just as we have it, and let's go ahead and render this out real quick. First, I'm going to make sure that my render settings are decent enough for this so it doesn't take forever. Okay. I'm going to render that out, and we'll see what it looks like. A quick note, as it's rendering, you're not going to see the effects of the post-processing stuff here in this. It's going to render out the image, and then the final thing it does is it will apply the post-processing, and you're still not going to see it in this little preview window. You got to go check the wherever you output it to, go check that. So we'll see what it looks like when it's done rendering here. Okay, here it is. This is the final render. Okay, well, technically this is the second final render. The first one I did, I think the fog was a little too dark, so I changed the color up to like white on the fog to give it more of like that kind of smoky kind of look, and so that's what I've got going on here. I think that looks pretty darn good. I'm pretty pleased with it. And also there's this going on. I didn't do that. Like this kind of like sharpened, serrated looking look around the bit down here. I think what that is because, don't be fooled thinking I tried to or that I went and like created like some more detail there behind scenes and was like, haha. No, I didn't do that. This is exactly, if you followed along with me, ours look exactly the same, I assure you. Hopefully when you render yours out, you'll probably see that as well. I think what it is the fact that that other material that I put on here, the discoloration, the optional one, so if you did that, right? If you did that, then ours are the same. I think that what that is it's the reflection of the light bouncing off of the glass and reflecting back off of this, and that's what we're seeing here. Like, I can't really see it very well if I zoom in, but I imagine that's what it is. But yeah, that's it. You know, I hope that helps. I hope that you were able to follow along and that you have something that you're pleased with, man. I really do. I hope it was informational and educational. I hope it was fun, right? It's no good if you're not having fun modeling stuff. And yeah, man, I hope you have enjoyed. But that's going to be enough out of me. So thank you very much.